Welcome to She Loves the Grid, where we discuss all things F1, whether it's happening. And here we are for another She Loves the Grid right after the race. So just so you guys know, we're recording moments, like not even an hour. Race is not even been over an hour, maybe half an hour.
Yeah.
So
maybe a half an hour.
Maybe. So I'm Claire. Dianne, how are you?
I'm good. What a race. I mean, there were parts of it that were a little dull, but oh my goodness, we had a lot of stuff happening in between those parts.
Well, let's get the niceties over. How was your week?
It was good. It was busy, lots of work. And then last night I was up early. I thought the race started an hour earlier, so I was getting myself all ready. And then I was texting you, like, where's the pre-show? The race starts in 5 minutes.
It's an hour.
Oh my goodness.
And the Europeans changed their clock. And I guess either the app doesn't realize that your time zone is the way it is, or I don't know what's going on with you, but yeah. Mine was right. Mine had it correct.
Yeah. Well, you do use the F1 and I don't. I use Formulify on my phone. And I did notice they must have refreshed it, because before this race even started, I already had the times for Brazil. So they must have realized off. At least I didn't miss it.
Next week, the U.S. times change, and then everything's back in sync. But then
except
again, Arizona's off. But anyway,
we don't ever change. How was your week?
It was good. Again, busy, just busy. Yeah. Like the week blew by. I don't even know what happened.
Yeah, same. And it's almost November.
Oh. I know.
Yikes.
I know. I can't believe that October's almost over. And then we only have 3 races left, which is crazy.
I know. That is what is nuts. I was working on stuff last night or this morning. Oh my gosh, the days they're like blurring together for Brazil. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're almost done. It's round 21 next week. Holy cow. Crazy.
And we have a race and then a break and then 2 races and we're done. In fact, when we were watching the race, they were like 20 days to Las Vegas. I'm like, 20 days to Las Vegas? Oh my God.
Listen, I entered all of every contest that I could find. And I know I did not get it from F1, but I'm holding my breath that I get it for one of the other team ones. I'm ready to go. I'm close. I can do it.
I'll be there.
Yeah, I know. Then we'll have to find you a ticket to get here.
I'll get one. I have credit that I need to use from one U.S. airline that I'm just going to book a weird flight that's out next year sometime and hope I use it, because my credit expires in 2 weeks. So on a U.S.
Well, this will be perfect timing, because they should be letting us know.
And I have like a $500 credit, so I've got for the U.S. and they fly out of London, so I just have to get to London.
Oh, easy.
I know, right? So I just need to.
All right. Fingers crossed. You got to send all the positive vibes. I keep manifesting it. Like, we're in Vegas. Yay. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. Let's get moving, because we thought maybe this week we might have a short episode, but no, they gave us a whole heck of a lot to talk about.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, let's get going.
Okay. So just very quickly, F1 Academy stuff. Marta Garcia, we talked about last week. She won the World Driving Championship, the very first one for F1 Academy. And the rules are, if you win, you can't come back. So they did announce this week, though, that she is getting a fully funded race seat with Prema Racing, who she already raced with for F1 Academy. But this is going to be for the 2024 Formula Regional European Championship by Alpine. It's called F1esta. And so F1esta announced that they are going to grant its top teams a season-long 4th entry if they sign a driver that finishes P1, P2, or P3 in the F1 Academy standings. So that's also pretty cool, is they are setting that up. So F1esta really is kind of like a proving ground, they say, for drivers that kind of want to go from F4 level to an F3. So that is really what, F1 Academy wanted to do, was provide stepping stones for female drivers to move into these F3, F2, and then hopefully at some point F1. So I thought that was very cool. And then F1 Academy announced that for 2024, they're going to lower the driver contribution from 150,000 euros to 100. So again, to kind of remove some of those cost barriers, or barriers in general, to get people into the sport. So all very positive news.
I'm glad they're doing that, because I don't know if you've got it in here, but I was watching some, I didn't read them fully because they ticked me off, but to hear a female motorsport driver who is not an F1 driver or in the F series driver have the audacity to say that there's not someone talented enough that's female to drive an F1.
Yeah.
Just irritated me to no end. And it's like, yes, you drive, but you drive for a completely different type of car.
Drove.
And she faced so much pushback and whatnot and had to fight it. And then to have that, it was icky. It's very icky.
She also dated Aaron Rodgers. So I feel like from that, we kind of know that maybe her, thought process isn't like, probably
so
not.
I'm not even mentioning her name because she's not worth it. Anyway, let's get moving.
Okay, Mexico Grand Prix. So there was news that came out. Of course, our little chatty Cathy friend, Helmut Marko. If you're new and you're just starting to listen to us, I call Helmut Marko Chatty Cathy. And he made a point to share with the media that they had to get bodyguards for Max. I just feel like that's problematic on so many points. Like, first of all, you should have had all the bodyguards. But also, all the drivers had them. So Max wasn't the only one. Checo obviously had them. All the drivers had bodyguards. It just, like, the fans are just so passionate there. And we see it at other tracks where the fans, like, the paddocks are getting more and more full, and people are like inches away from the drivers, like trying to get pictures and everything. So it was for everybody. He wasn't the only one that had a bodyguard.
It's got to be made special.
Whatever. Or I'm not going to get into it. I feel like it was another little dig at Checo and maybe the Mexican people. So a helmet could go. I'm surprised he was there. Anyways, today, or at least today is the first time I've seen it. F1 came out with a new campaign called #RaceSpect, RACE. I don't even know, PECT. I had to stop and think about that.
RACEPECT.
Yeah. Just flows off the tongue, right? But anyways, so the drivers, I saw it for Ferrari, I saw it for Mercedes, and both drivers are, in the little blurb saying, what happens on the track stays on the track. I first saw it with Ferrari, and so the comments were like, you can't choose, hate one driver over the other. There's just been a lot of stuff, and right before we came on, I had said, like, fans are very toxic. There's a lot of just back and forth between, like, Max and Lewis fans, and now Checo, and Max fans, and all this stuff. And right before we came on, somebody had posted from the race today, somebody wearing a Red Bull hat. We don't know if it's a Checo fan or whatever, but beating up for people wearing Ferrari gear. And we heard the crowd boo Charles in the interviews after the race. And it's just like, come on. Like, this is just kind of
as much as I don't like Max, there's no reason to boo Max either. I mean, it's just
the
thing is, and for the Charles thing is, and when we get to it, it wasn't his fault. It was Checo's fault. He admitted it. He admitted it already to others and took onus. And if you know F1, then that's what it was. And I would think, to me, if you spent that kind of money to be there, that you would know F1. Right. But it's getting too much. It's no different than we hear in the United States when they have to worry about if a football team wins or a basketball team wins a championship, they have to worry about the fans looting the town and tearing down the town. Like, How does a sports team that you don't play for, that you don't have a child or a skin in the game, yes, you're a fan, you enjoy it, you buy their tchotchkes, you spend money to support them, but that's it. And that justifies violence and destruction of property and all. It doesn't. People.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't. It grow up.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when we had this conversation before we started recording, you had said, the drivers, you're not impressing them at all. Like, and you're going to ruin it for everybody. Like,
no, they're not over there going, oh yeah, my fan beat up one of your fans, or well, look what they did. No, in fact, I would love it, and it's not going to happen, but I would love it if Checo were really on the verge of retiring, that he would just be like, you guys did it for me. I cannot continue to drive if you guys are going to behave like this. Just kind of like having to parent your children. Like, I suffer the consequences.
Sad. It's just sad. And again, it's not just, the Checo fans. Like, again, there's a lot of very passionate and annoying and obnoxious Max fans and Lewis fans and Charles fans, and the list kind of goes on and on.
We see the Facebook groups of people going back and forth. It's like, yes, Max is having a phenomenal season. There's a lot of stats. There's no apples to apples comparison though, because of the cars are different. The technology is different. The race season is different. Even they said today, he's won 16 races. That used to be the number of races that were in a season. So when he can go more, well, yeah, because there's more races. There used to not be so many. So it would be impressive if it's a percentage. But see, then again, 16 is not 100% of the season. And somebody in the past couldn't win 16 and be 100%. Like it just, And again, different cars, different technology, different everything. Yes, not saying he's not phenomenal, but please.
Yeah, I agree. We need some respect around here, like we just do. So hopefully people will start acting like grown-ups. Please. Please. Off the field, Alpine and Haas had a friendly little football match. Pierre was out there. Didn't see anybody else driver-wise, but I always think that's kind of fun. I think that's probably good for those teams to get off. And like, this is the second of, a triple header. And so, gosh, where were we left? Austin, you go from, overseas. Where were we before that? Not Singapore. I'm already losing track. Someplace. And then we went to Austin. Now we're in Mexico. Then we're going to Brazil. I think it's nice for them to get off and do something fun, like have a good little competition.
That's two different teams having a fun, friendly match and not at each other's throats.
I know. And that's the other thing that drives me nuts is like these drivers do have respect for each other. Even in like we talked about at the beginning of this year, a lot of them grew up together. There's a whole slew of them that did karting and stuff together. And
they were just talking about Lando and Russell today. Yeah. Like competing and going against each other and one past the other, and how they grew up together and they know each other because they've driven against each other for so long.
Yes.
They came into F1 together and all of that,
Yeah. And if you ever see the funny little videos that like Alex and Lando and George tend to do, like you can tell they've been, they grew up together. They joke about each other all the time. All the time. It's just, it's ridiculous. These guys are all friends. And where we thought there might be issues with teammates this year with like Haas, because Nico and Kevin had bad blood back in the day, and then Esteban and Pierre had bad blood. No issues, at least that anybody is hearing about. They're resolving issues that happen on the track. So why can't the fans get past it?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's so annoying. Okay, anyways. Moving on to the special lids, because these were kind of fun. So if you're on our YouTube page, you can see. So this is Valtteri's All I Want Is Tacos.
As soon as I saw that, I just knew it was his. I didn't even need to know what driver it could be for. I knew it was Valtteri's. I just knew it.
I love it because I love the colors, that pink and blue, like teal blue.
So I made the background that color. I had to do it.
I love this. I think it's amazing. And before, I think they were the first ones him and his girlfriend, I don't think they're married, Tiffany Cromwell, they were in Mexico early, and they had a whole bunch of photos with a taco truck, and I don't know that if they have a stake in it or what, but they had t-shirts and the whole 9 yards. But yeah, I love this. All I want is tacos. Valtteri, he's got the best helmets. What does he do with all these fun helmets? Like seriously, he's had some great ones this year. Okay, so Nico, today is like his 200th race. 200 races. Can you believe it? So he's the 22nd driver to reach 200 races. His first and only pole was back in 2010. So that's how long he's kind of been around in and out. But his helmet, I think, is so cool because it's all pictures and it goes back to his karting days. There's, pictures with all the different teams that he's been in. They actually, a lot of the teams that he's been with gave him gifts. So some gave him his old helmet. One gave him an end wing. Another Williams, I gave him a photo. Like, I just love that. I love sentimental things like this. So I think that's fun. What a great lid. And then Checo. Oh my gosh. This was a fan designed and it was so intricate. If you have not seen the whole thing, go and look at it on the Red Bull Instagram or social media, because it goes through and it goes side by side and then shows the top and talks about all the different things that are reflected on it. So on the front, which we don't see, there's ribbon to reference piñatas. And then on the sides, there's little agave plants for the tequila. And there's each of these, like, I don't know, all of those little things mean something. And I just thought, what a thoughtful, first of all, the colors are amazing. It's so incredibly colorful.
Gorgeous. Absolutely
it's gorgeous. Oh my gosh.
Well, another neat thing that was this week, and I don't know if you've got it in here, but is Will Buxton's 300th GP to broadcast with. So I thought that was a cover. I thought that was pretty, because one, he doesn't look it. He's been doing it for 20 years, but
no,
like 300th GP that he has been involved with and broadcasted and whatnot. I think that's so cool.
Did you see his jean jacket that he was wearing today when he was doing the grid walk? And it was a jean jacket on the back. It said Mr. 3000. And it had like one of the Mexico like wrestling masks underneath.
No, but I did see several of the guys showing up today with like the traditional Mexican wrestler masks and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, Pierre had that. But yeah, Will, but what did he say? Will said earlier this week, it's really, so that's just F1. And he said, over the years or as he's gotten older, he does not do all of the races. So just because he wants to, be home with his family and all that kind of stuff. But overall, he's done probably, he said like 2,000. So even outside of F1, he started, in other series. So thousands, like a couple thousand, I think. More than that, right? Because he's at 3,000. No, 300. 300. But I think overall, like since he started his career, it's like 1,000 or 2,000 or something. Pretty fun. I love that.
I thought that was just a neat one because I llearned so much from the F1 commentators, F1 TV commentators. So it was neat to hear that with him.
I love Will Buxton. He's great. Okay, so not so fun facts for you. We usually have fun facts, and then these are some not so fun facts. So after being disqualified last week, this is the first time since 2010 that Lewis has scored 0 points in back-to-back races. 2010. Oh my gosh. That was the last time Nico got pole. But this is the first time since 0. And then today he bounces back with bounce back. Little Sean. Anyways, so Charles from pole. He has had, this is why I don't like Charles to be on pole. I've said it before and he did it again. But anyways, and I have another stat for you a little later, but he has had did not start from pole. That was in Monaco a couple of years ago or 2 years ago, I think. He's had DNFs 3 times in 2022, all in 1 year. And then now he's had a DQ in Austin from pole. Like, seriously. There's a not great stat that I'll share later on. But yeah, I just think that is insane. it's like a trifecta. All we need now is like, yeah, I don't even know. Didn't qualify. That's like, but if you don't qualify, you can't be on pole. So anyways, so let's see. Okay, until Austin, Fernando and Max were the only two drivers to complete every lap of 2023. But when Fernando went out, retired in Austin last week, it's just Max, which I think is kind of crazy to think that he has had no mechanical failures, no race incidents where his car was damaged and he had to retire. Like, how does that happen? I mean, is there another car on the grid that hasn't retired or had? There's got to be. I don't know. Like, if you start going through the teams, I feel like almost everybody has. We're going to have to check on that. But how is it like his car? Granted, he's always like 12 seconds ahead of everybody, but still, like some of those first turns.
Well, like today's first turn, like
no,
how it's not him and it was Checo.
Crazy. Okay. Practice, just a couple things, nothing really major in practice, but Pirelli was doing some prototype testing. And so what's that?
They did an FP1 and FP2.
I think so. Yeah. So that's kind of interesting. I always find that interesting. They always do that towards the end of this, this point in the year.
Well, they talked about too with the degradation this year and the way the tires wore this year because of the car performance. They really are trying to get a lot more testing in and for next year.
As they should, because it was race 2 or 3 when they realized, oh crap, the tires that we had for 2023, we've kind of already met where we thought we'd be at the end of the season, and that was race 2 or 3. It was in Australia, and I can't remember now if that was the second.
It was pretty bad. It was pretty bad.
So smart of them to do that. Also in FP1, and I also love this time of year for this kind of stuff, but there was a whole slew of junior drivers getting a chance to drive the cars. And for some of them, it was their very first time in an F1 car. So you had Théo Pourchaire. So he was in Valtteri's Alfa Romeo, lots of brake issues. I felt so bad for him because he'd go out and he'd be like, brake issue. And they're like, you need to box again. And I think he said he had to stop like 20 minutes. And I just felt terrible for him. And also that's
he got not one solid lap. Not one solid lap. Not one.
No. And you are driving the actual driver's car. It's not like they brought a spare car and that's the one you're driving. So brake issues, I would be peeing my pants probably. Like, I don't want to crash this into the wall because of a brake issue. And then Valtteri has nothing for, FP2. Like, that's horrible. Ollie Behrman, I love Ollie. First of all, he's 18 years old. So like Fernando was already like, I don't know, winning races. I think they said like YouTube was 2 years old when Ollie was born. Like,
shut up.
No, like you want to feel old.
No, shut up. My favorite music that's from the 70s was only 30 years ago. So shut up.
I agree with you, but I love myself some Ollie. He is actually a Ferrari Academy driver, but he drove Haas's. He drove Haas's. I think it was Kevin. I don't remember if it was Kevin or Nico. I think Kevin's car. And he did awesome. Oh my gosh. Everybody was talking afterwards, like how great he did. And like, he was up there as far as, time. They were impressed how he drove that car. It must've been Kevin's car. Cause I was like, Kevin could probably, like, why did we sign Kevin? Like,
it was. And I even liked his analysis after the fact. Cause they were talking to, the commentators and the questions that they asked him and how he was, comparing them and everything. He was just so appreciative, and two, just his presence and his understanding and whatnot at that level, I thought was really, really good. He's, it's like one of those to watch. I can't wait till he becomes a rookie on the grid, and he probably would be one of my favorite rookies.
I know he'll be one of my favorite rookies because I've had my eye on him. And in Barcelona this year, I was very excited to get to watch him, just go around a few times. I was like, that's definitely one I've got my eye on. So I do think eventually he'll be in F1. He's only 18. I don't know if that will happen soon, but he definitely impressed out there. And I will tell you, I I have this someplace else, but Pietro Fittipaldi I love Pietro. He's great. He's the reserve driver for Haas right now, but it was announced Monday or Tuesday that he's going to IndyCar or one of the Indy things. And he's super excited. I think Pietro, we could also probably down the road see him as a commentator. He's really, really good at that kind of stuff. But that leaves a spot open for a reserve driver at Haas. So I don't know if that was a little tryout for Ollie or, maybe they have somebody else in mind, but I'd love to see it. Love to see it. I hate to see Pietro go. I do like him a lot, but good for him. Like he needs a full-time seat. Sorry, let's keep going. Jack Doohan, he is already the reserve driver for Alpine. He was driving Isaac Hadjar. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but he drove AlphaTauri, Yuki's car, and then Frederick Vesti drove Mercedes. And I think that was
a
George's
little
car.
trouble with Isaac and Yuki's car. It took a little bit, so it was out for a bit, but then he finally got a couple of laps in.
Yeah, I think that's But I love to see that. I love to see it, and I know there's some more drivers that will be doing. I don't know if it's in Brazil, maybe it's Abu Dhabi. So we'll keep an eye on that. But it's fun to see it because these are the up and coming drivers, and what a great experience! I think it was Frederick or Teo was just saying like best day of his life, best day of his life. Like he could not even believe it. Like, and again, first time in an F1 car, and they say like there is no other car like an F1 car. You could drive all different types, but these cars, the power behind them, the speed, everything, there's nothing like it. You can't really prepare yourself for it.
And then the complexity of driving that at altitude.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Because those cars are tricky in that altitude. Yeah. So good for them. I'm super excited for all of them. All right, let's jump into quali really quick. Q1, Yuki being my little global treasure. Toe and Daniel, Q1, Q2. Like, I just loved it. Like making sure Danny was like getting in there, like making sure towing him up to P2. Like
it was amazing through all of quali. I mean, I know we've got a section. We normally go by each section. It was just amazing the different names and the different teams up. It wasn't your typical Max is first. I mean, he was first, but you know what I'm saying? It's like Alex was just blowing me away. And to see, the Williams performing and to see like Bottas. I know Bottas is usually good there, but it was just interesting to see the shakeup of some of the names and whatnot, which you and I talked later that day. It was made it difficult to go, what's going to happen during race day? Is it going to? But I mean, quality. A lot of times we see that because it's just a couple of laps. It's not sustaining the whole race. But it was really interesting. It was kind of exciting.
I totally agree, and I do love seeing Bottas. Like I feel like I don't know, the Alfa Romeos have just been under our radar for a lot of reasons this year. So to see him be up there was exciting. I wish the Williams had done better because they were so good in practice. And so when they were not that great in quali, I was like, this is making me so sad. McLaren, let's talk about them waiting until the last few minutes of Q1 to even go out on the track.
Oh, my pet peeve. And look what it did.
Yep.
Get out there, have it, and then he gets his track time deleted. And it's like, because you have one good in. Get a crappy one in. Get a crappy one to at least get you in the top 15. So if you get your flyer that puts you way up there, at least you're in the top 15 and you don't go out without a time.
Yep, exactly. And that is, I mean, Q1 is the longest session of qualifying. How do you not go out, like you just said, put in a time, any old time? McLarens are fast cars. You don't have to be first or second. We just need to get through to P2. We'll worry about that in
as far back as he started to where he ended today. Could you imagine if he could have at least made it in Q2 and been 5 places up, and especially maybe Q3?
Yeah,
I mean, it would have been a different podium. I think
you're 100% right on that. 100%
Lando
right.
is got pace, man. He's got pace.
Lando's amazing. I'm so glad I bought that helmet last week. I was thinking that today. I'm like, I'm so glad because this season, this whole second half of the season to me is all about Lando. Like Max does what he does, right? Like, so taking Max out of the equation, like it's all Lando, absolutely Lando. So I was gutted for him. I honestly was. Let's talk about the impeding and all of the like. So here's the thing, like Max is investigated for impeding in the pits, holding up 6 or 7 cars. If you heard Charles radio while he was waiting there, like, can we pass them? Are we not allowed to pass them? Like, what is going on? What's the holdup? Fernando did the same thing. George did the same thing. What they were doing is they were sitting there waiting so the car in front of them would go and it would allow some room and they weren't all bunched up. I guess, and maybe I didn't realize this happened, but there is a newer rule. I think it's a newer rule, but where they want them to do that sitting and waiting in the pits, not out where my pet peeve is on the last turn, where they all started bunching up and causing almost accidents. So I read something George said last night where he was like, what do they want us to do? They don't want us doing it on the track. We're allowed to do it here. So nobody got penalties for that at all. Okay.
It's like the pits, most of the pits have enough room for 2 cars side by side up to a point. Then, okay, find the lesser of 2 evils and go, okay, if you want to wait and do the spacing, then sit here. But it's kind of like the passing lane, on the freeway. Then if you don't, then let somebody, pass.
Yeah. But I
then
wonder,
again, might end up having to wait then even longer. So that doesn't work out. Never mind. I just talked myself out of it.
But I was gonna say, like, I don't like if I'm a driver or even like if I'm Charles, I'm irritated because I'm 6 cars back on what is happening up there. But would I be doing that at the front? Because if you're trying to get a time in and it's towards the end of the session, would you want to just sit there, or would you rather be in traffic and trying to get your lap going? Like,
if you're waiting till the last minute and you have no times, I can see why it can be a pain. But
you should never be waiting till the last minute. That's my thing. Fernando he spun and he brought out a yellow flag, and so Hamilton was investigated.
He had so many spins in practice and in quali. Like, I don't know what's that car. They just, and then when they announced it, they were like, "Oh, well, Lance is going to be on this one, and Fernando's going to be on that one, and that's the crappy one."
Yeah, no, I was like, "What is happening?" I don't know. I will definitely talk about that car. But so Hamilton was also investigated for not slowing down. He didn't get a penalty. Sargent was noted for overtaking during a yellow. He was the only driver of all of the people that were being investigated during qualifying. He got a 10-place grid drop, which didn't matter. I think he was already 19th or 20th place, and 2 points on his super license. So he was the only one. And he said what we all saw, which was the light board was green. So he was speeding up, and they said, "Oh, no. It was green, but you're not allowed to go faster until you pass that." There was nothing on his dash, nothing. I think Logan kind of got screwed on that. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to distract from all the other stuff they like.
All I think of is because that's like speeding. It's like same thing like your speed limit. It's not the speed limit. It's not when you see it. It's when you pass the sign. Well, where's it?
I've successfully argued my way out of a ticket for that because I was starting to speed up. And then when like the cop pulled me over after the sign, and I said, "Well, the sign's back there." And he's like, "Oh, well, I got you before that 20 yards or whatever it was." And I'm like, "Yeah, but here we are." And I just got a warning. So I feel like
2 points on his supervisor. So he's now at 6 points.
Yeah. And you could only get, what is it, in a 12-month period? How much is it? 12? I can't remember.
Something like that, yeah. So
they start to roll off. But this is his first season. So Like you're 6 points in already.
Oh my God.
I don't know. Anyways, out in Q1, Lando was out in Q1 with nothing. That was a shocker. Sergeant, Stroll, K-Mag, Ocon for his third Q1 exit out of the last 7 races. So not doing so hot in the quali. Q2, I was dying with Alex. Like he had been impressive, a 10th off of Max during practice and stuff. And here he's struggling. He's like, this is not the same car. There's got to be damage. Like, no, he had no clue. But he was the last car to come across in Q2 and jumped up to P9. Like, thank the Lord. Like, but then it got worse because it's Q2's over. We could talk about everybody else in a second, but Q2's over. They're in the pits getting ready for Q3. And they're like, just kidding. Alex had track limits at a weird turn. It wasn't even, I think it was like inside, I don't know. And so your lap time's deleted. And his lap time that he had on the board was not good enough to get through. We put him like what, P14 or something? I think.
Yeah, put him on P14.
Yeah, P14. And so that put Zhou back up into Q3. And if you notice, he did not get out of his car, which I always say, if you're on the bubble, don't get out because you never know. And sure enough, he needed to go back out there. But Carlos was so slow. He barely made it into Q3, like by 700ths of a second. Horrible. Like, I was like, what is going on? Daniel looking strong, right? Like, Danny Rick, you were sad about him last week because you thought he should have come out a little bit better. And he showed out this weekend. Like,
he listened.
He did listen. I think he did. I think he is like, Claire's right. I need to get out there. So out in Q2 was Gasly, Hulkenberg, Alonso, Alex Albon, thanks to the track time deletion, and then Yuki. So Yuki actually did not put a time on the board. We found out Friday that he was going to be starting at the back of the grid, P20, because he was replacing his power unit. He's already used his 4 allotted units. So they didn't want to risk it, but he did go out, and being the global treasure that he is, he once again did a tow for Danny and got, helped Daniel get through to Q3. So like, that is a true teammate. That's what you want to do. And then Q3 comes along and Ferrari. I literally have no words. I
was freaking out. I was like, oh my gosh. For people who haven't listened to us before or may not remember, for whatever reason, I get to see the broadcast 5 to 30 seconds before Diane. It depends on the day.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, exclamation, exclamation, exclamation.
I couldn't believe it. Like when Carlos came across and he was P1, I was like, ah! And then Charles came across and he went P1. So now we're P1, P2. I'm like, oh my gosh. Then Max comes through. Nope, he can't get better than third. And more cars like are coming through. And I was like, ah, ah! And my dogs were trying to sleep and they kept like jumping up. Like, what is happening? But a Ferrari front row lockout was not on my bingo card this weekend at all. I mean, Charles had some moments where he was up there like P3, whatever. Carlos, no. And Carlos was sick on Friday, so I give him that pass.
And he was sick, right? He wasn't feeling well, and just like he snapped out of it.
I could not believe it. I was like, what is, and they couldn't believe it. And I'll give you a quote in a little bit, what Charles had to say, because he was like, before qualifying, he was like, no, that would be shocking. Or something to that effect. Something to that effect. So I was ecstatic. Oh my gosh. And then I kind of went from that to watching the Diamondbacks for the World Series, and they won 9-1. So it was a great, great afternoon and evening all the way around. Really, really
and I
fun.
spent Saturday just chilling because I drank too much Friday night. So
Nothing wrong with that.
at this age, I don't recover that well from drinking.
Well, that happens.
That and whatever the vertigo thing happened, it just doesn't. They don't mix. Anyway,
That's
all right,
true.
let's get into the race because we are recording right after. I keep checking. Nothing should strange happen, but nothing strange has happened. So
okay, good. Yeah, I don't think we should have anything crazy, but yeah, let's talk about Haas really quick because we've already talked about nobody got penalties. I was kind of surprised at that. I kept checking my phone last night, thinking, okay, and then I see one for Logan, and I'm like, well, where's everybody else's? And then I found it. No, nobody gets anything. So anticlimactic. Okay, but Haas, Kevin. Oh, Kevin.
And Haas is now last in the Constructors' Cup.
Ooh, well, yeah, that's true. Daniel brought home a lot of points today.
They are last, not even tied. They are last.
Oh,
they are 12, no. And then AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo are tied for 16. So they are last.
AlphaTauri making moves today.
AlphaTauri and Alfa Romeo are tied for 16, and then Williams is at 28.
Oh, so, yeah.
Ooh, Williams needs to be scared.
And you know what else? Yeah, and James is hoping,
because Alex
was in the points today. Alex
keeps it up. I think they'll keep 7th. There's only 3 races.
I know we were going to talk about Haas, but hang on. Like if Yuki hadn't pulled that little maneuver, he was also in the points. They were set to have double points today.
Yeah, they would have been better. They would instead of been tied for 8, they would have been, yeah, absolutely. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
I thought they were Haas because Haas was okay. Yeah. Oh my gosh. That wreck. I will tell you that's the one time I did scream. Like I screamed. I screamed that, and I screamed at the very beginning of the race. But that one, I jumped up. I was freaked out because oh my gosh, and I swear, like we were talking about before this, he had the same lap earlier, the same lap or the lap before had run off into the left because the commentators are like, oh, he's coming into the commentary booth, because he just went around and like, that's dirty. It's really dirty. And you could see the car going through like dirt and gravel. Yeah. And it was the left side of the car. So I think that's where he broke something in his suspension. So by the time he went back around, it was a failure. You see the wheel. You see my partner. He's like, that failed. I'm like, yeah, I could see it. It's just, and then.
Yeah. It was a right-hand turn and his car was just going left. Like it wasn't even trying to turn.
Back left-hand tire failed. The wheel. It just snapped off.
And it looked like a really hard hit. And so like my concern was he did get out quickly because when the camera was not on that. So all of a sudden we see the crash, right? Like we see the car stopped and it's like, holy cow, that looks terrible. Who is it? It's a Haas. Okay, which Haas? And you could see Kevin climbing out, but he didn't look okay. And I know you said like he was shaking his hands, but he just to me looked like he kind of was like unsteady. And then he went and he sat up like on top of the what do you call that stuff? The barriers. And then he kind of was sitting there. And again, he didn't seem real steady. And then he got down and kind of sat down on the ground because I don't think he felt safe being up high. And the team said that, yes, he is okay. He's been checked over by medical, but they are actually going to keep him for more observation. And Claire and I were talking before we started, and to me, that very much sounds like they're concerned maybe about a concussion or something along those lines, which I hope they do a concussion protocol because we race next week in Brazil. And when I say we, I mean, that's because like I'm part of all of this. And like I don't know if you should be racing if you have a concussion. It was hard. It was really hard. The car was on fire afterwards. It seemed to take forever for the medical people to get there. I'm like, does anybody see Kevin? He does not look okay right now. Like, where is the medical people? I don't get it. Afterwards, after the race today, because it did bring out the red flag, and I'll share later on, Max made a comment that I didn't think was very nice. It definitely no empathy for what happened, but he saw the crash in the cool down room, which is one of my favorite parts of race day. And he said immediately, that was a failure. He looks at Lewis and he goes, that was a failure. That was a failure. No. And I think Lewis was like, yeah. And then he saw the hit, and his face was like, you could tell he had no idea how hard Kevin hit that wall. Like, so maybe don't say things over the radio, Max, in the future.
Yeah, so you know what happens, right?
You never know. So yeah, poor Kevin. I hope he's okay. Nico, I think he was battling with somebody at the end. Was it Logan Sargent? So I want to say he finished around 13th or 14th, Nico. So, not great for your 22nd race, but it's okay. Alpine, not much to really say about Alpine. I feel like they slid backwards a little bit. Esteban, maybe he was fighting with Esteban. Esteban was a little cheeky on the radio. He said, tell the Haas I'm coming and they need to be ready, or something to that effect. So I feel like that was cute. I feel like that was like the most exciting thing that happened.
And they were getting into the that we don't have radio to radio, but that would be kind of like, that was kind of interesting.
Alfa Romeo, I don't know. Like, they both started in the top 10. Couldn't tell you where they finished. I think Joe was down towards the bottom, and Valtteri was kind of like middle of the pack there. I mean, we ended up having 5 cars, I think, retire by the end of the race. So, maybe like 15th and 13th or somewhere in there. AlphaTauri, though, like, ooh, what a day. So Daniel was like keeping the mustache. He said that's clearly like his lucky charm is the mustache. And there was a lot of chatter when he qualified 4th. I'm already losing track. 4th yesterday, about him qualifying higher than Checo. Lots of chatter there.
Lots of memes about him like sneaking up behind and taking his seats and all that. Oh yeah, there was a lot.
Oh my gosh, so much. He really wasn't necessarily, I think, in the best situation when they did the standing start after the red flag, after Kate Mag's red flag, because I think he only had softs left. But he didn't finish too badly. I mean, like we said, he finished with quite a few points. And
what I think is impressive is that he did that. I mean, I know it's had some upgrades, but he did it in the AlphaTauri, right?
Yes.
And while it had some upgrades, that's pretty good for not being, just getting his feet back underneath him, being in the AlphaTauri. Yep. It'll be interesting if that AlphaTauri, if he stays with AlphaTauri, they don't move him up next year. And they bring more of the Red Bull, the RB19 to AlphaTauri, because he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Oh, 100%. And I think, this is what they were hoping to see from Daniel when they brought him in, a few races back. And then, unfortunately, his first or second race, he hits the wall and breaks his hand. But this is exactly what they were wanting to see from him. And I think, there's also been a lot of people that have been saying, Daniel's, he should just retire. Like, he's washed up. He's not going to do that great. Well, here he was, second race back, doing awesome.
It puts him 2 points behind Yuki. He's right behind Yuki in the standings. Because Yuki is 16th with 8 points, and Danny is 17th with 6 points, or tied for 17th or whatever. Because Joe has also got 6 points. But
this is technically like his first. These are his first points today. That all came on one day.
Yeah, I think that's one race point. Yeah, so
one race. And
Yuki not scoring. Yuki not scoring really.
That was awful because
I know you were like, but it was, and I'm like, wait a minute, I don't think it was him.
It's not. It wasn't Oscar. I blamed it on Oscar initially because it's like I can't, my little global treasure could do no wrong, but I knew who was at fault. I knew it was Yuki because
I have to tell you, I like twice rewrote that message. I'm like, that wasn't. I don't think that was. The commentators, I'm like, okay, even the commentators are saying it wasn't Oscar.
I know it wasn't Oscar. Oscar race is pretty clean, I would say. And Yuki had already they had already touched, like the lap before that or 2 laps before that. And it was kind of fun to watch him like going after Oscar. Like he wanted those points, but he just turned in too early, and it just
And then he was mad after, and he was like, it wasn't Yuki, it was you, man. It was you.
Yeah, no, that was all Yuki. And I think it is interesting too, like the radios. Like, so Yuki was up in the points and he dropped down to P16. I don't even know where he ended up finishing, but definitely not in the points. But you could hear his frustration coming through. To me, it was kind of like the old Yuki, where Oscar was just like super calm and kind of like telling them what happened. And so that was really, really sad. But honestly, amazing weekend for Daniel. I would love to see this continue the next 3 races for him. Today was his best start since 2021. So if he could just build on those points, and again, we talked about this in the constructor standing, that's a big deal that AlphaTauri is no longer in last place. That's a huge deal because that is millions of dollars for them next year. So
that's huge.
Yeah, amazing. Williams, okay, they looked really, really good in practice. I think we've already talked about that. Logan Sargent, he was looking pretty good. I kind of felt like I think he's going to keep his seat next year.
And then another. I was so sad at the very end. They're like, "Oh, you guys didn't get to see this, but he had to retire." Oh,
on the very last lap because it was a fuel pump issue. It was nothing that he would have done. I think he was running 12th or 13th. So like that would have been pretty good because Alex, I think, finished P8 or P9. And so he's hanging in there. Like, I think that,
Alex is P9.
Okay. So I think, sorry, my dog is in here.
He made himself ahead. He had gotten ahead of Nico.
Yes.
But I don't think he had gotten past Yuki. Yuki was P12, Pierre was P11, and Nico was P13. So he'd gotten, you're right, he'd gotten right up in there before he retired.
Yeah. So I mean, that has got to be beyond frustrating for him. But I honestly feel like over the last 2 races, he is showing them he should have that seat next year. They don't want to throw that away. And I wish we knew what the benchmarks were, but they felt like he had been pretty close when weird things haven't happened. Sometimes it's been on him. Sometimes it's been on the car throughout the season, but they feel like he's been fairly close to Alex. And I think over the getting points last time because of the 2 disqualifications, but he's been up there in like P12, P13. And then, so I don't know. I hope he does. Hopefully, we're running out of time. Like, they need to tell us before the end of the season, but I think he's going to keep it. I'm just calling it right now.
Okay.
Just calling it. Okay. Moving on. McLaren.
Oh they didn't, they weren't performing as well as I expected. Then they're just like right there at the end, Lando pulling it out from, where he started. So way up there. I have to say, and I know you've got other stuff to cover, but one of my best parts that I enjoyed of it was when they were basically on radio going, Oscar, you're not keeping pace. If you can't keep, basically, it was like, if you can't keep pace, then Lando needs to pass. Yep. And he's like, all right, let him pass. And he let him pass. And Lando, holy cow, did he gained 3 or 4 spots at that point. Like he passed. And he just ran out of race.
Yeah,
if we had a few more laps, I think you could have gotten one more up there, right? Like I don't think he could have caught Max, honestly, but he could have closed the gap had he been. And again, had he not started as far back as he did, I know he would have been P2 and could have challenged Max. Like he is the one who can challenge Max.
Yeah. I agree with you. I do think that if he had a regular qualifying, didn't go out in Q1, he would have been up there and it would have been a very different podium. Absolutely a very different podium. Today, I think Lando put on a masterclass of how to work your way through the field because he started towards the bottom and he just one right after the other was picking cars off. Unfortunately for him, he pitted right before the red flag and he lost position. He went back down to P14 for the restart. And so he had to start all over. And then it was like Masterclass 2.0, where he just like kept going, picking
he started
off
P17.
Yeah,
He
P17.
started P17.
Yep.
Like,
and
so
then it was like he took off Daniel with 3 laps left. He takes off. George gets past him. He's now 3 points ahead of Charles in the driver standings. It was something to watch. Can you see if he was voted driver of the day? Because I did vote for him for driver of the day. And I don't
and he made it from P17 to P5.
Yeah.
That's 12.
Ridiculous. And again, if you think about it, he had worked his way up into the points right before the red flag. He's back down like P14 and had to do it all again. So holy moly, like what an
Norris.
absolute...
Yep, you got it. Lando Norris, driver of the day.
Yay! That's 4 times this year. 4 times really since the second half of the season. Since
Danny Rick came in close. He got it by 29.5%. Danny Rick got it was 21.6. Lewis 12, Sergio 8%, and Max 7.5.
Daniel did do good, but I had to give it to my vote to Lando because again, for him to do what he did and work his way up through the field twice, that was freaking impressive. Absolutely impressive. P5. Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Since Bahrain, remember at the beginning of the season when I called McLaren the orange tractor, like they were horrible. Yeah. They have gained almost a second in time. Like that was
amazing. I saw that graph. It was like 0.85. And then Aston Martin has lost 0.54.
Yes, they had the biggest loss, which we are going to talk about them next. But one of my other favorite McLaren things that happened today is the video of this little boy. It's his birthday today, meeting Lando Norris, his favorite driver. I have literally cried 3 times this morning watching different versions of this video. It is the sweetest thing ever. Lando is just, he's such a doll. If you haven't seen it, there's one video on McLaren. There's another, a different version on F1. Go watch it. Have your tissues ready. Like it is the absolute cutest.
So Lando's not only 6 and past Charles, right? But he is not far behind Fernando. And Fernando, the way he's running, there's a chance he could catch and beat Fernando because and Fernando and Carlos are tied.
Yes, they are. I noticed that. So, they actually had Carlos in 4th and Lando in 5th, but tied. So that happened today because he was Carlos was behind Fernando last week. So
Fernando didn't get any points. But
let's do. Speaking of birthdays, like it was Lance's birthday today. So there's that. He started from the pits. So this is kind of what we were talking about earlier. So he started from the pits. In overnight, like while the car was in park for May, they decided to switch up Lance's car and make it the same setup as Qatar. And then Fernando got the new setup, which was what they ran in Austin. So it's an inverse what they did in Austin. So in Austin, if you remember, in park for May, they pulled the cars. They both started from the pits. They put Fernando on the Qatar setup and then Lance on the Austin setup. But this time they switched it. It didn't work like at all. Like
they
Fernando.
Just go back to the beginning.
What?
They just need to go back to the beginning for both of them.
Yeah,
because that's when it worked. Like before Canada.
It was horrible. And then Fernando, do we even know why he retired on lap 49? Like 2 weeks in a row?
No, let me see if I can find out. But you know what's interesting? And I swear, you can ask my partner this, like right before he retired, I'm like, he might as well just retire. Why would you want to finish last and have 0 points? You've already lost the I've done every lap this season stats, so you might as well just retire because you suck. I mean, because after the restart, he shot up a couple of spaces. And then and then Lance got in front of him. Like, oh, are they just letting Lance in front again? It's like, what the heck? And then he fell back again in the last place. And was like,
Yeah.
that car.
Yeah. It just, the car was not, I mean, he let Lance pass him early on, but then towards the end, Lance hits Valtteri. Typical Lance move, if you ask me. Did not leave space for whatever reason. I think he has no peripheral vision. He spins, stuff flying off the car, and that's it for him. He's out of the race. So 2 DNFs for Aston Martin today. Horrible. I thought Lance might. I was like, ooh, look at Lance. But then that was going to be my thing, is like Lance in the old car, Lance in the new car, scoring points, because he looked like he could be, up there maybe for like 10 points. I don't know if you can hear my dog. Oh my gosh, do you hear that?
A little bit.
Oh, he has a way to get in the house and he just doesn't want to do it. So now he's being a pain. Anyways, I was starting to think like, okay, if Lance finishes this race and he drove both cars well enough to get points or near the points, what is going on with this car setup? But then he crashed. So there we go.
He had to retire due to damage sustained from debris.
Oh, what debris?
I don't know, but that's what's on their Twitter. Fernando was forced to retire due to damage sustained from debris.
Interesting. I don't know what debris they're talking about. Nick DeVries doesn't drive anymore. That's a little Carlos humor for you.
Now, it's funny, as somebody replied in the tweet, the radio of him from many races ago saying, "This is a lovely car to drive." That's right? So lovely anymore. It
has not been a lovely car since Canada. That I think we could say for sure. Okay, no. Lewis. Oh, Lewis. Okay, in our predictions, I just needed to swap Lewis and Checo because I had picked first and third.
Talking about that, I'm like, I put Checo in because I was like, as the one commentator kept saying over and over again, well, when it's your home race, it's all the emotions. It's either whatever, however you put it. I should know it because he said it so many times. It basically, you either win big or you lose big, and he lost big. But I was hoping for a win big because he's been on an upward trajectory. I was hoping, and then no.
Yeah, no. Lewis though was great because he also was just going after it. I think he saw his opening after, that stuff happened with Checo, and it was like Lewis was on Carlos for a while, then he's on Charles for he
was very methodical, and I liked how he didn't let, and they're professionals, they're all like this, but I like that he didn't let the DQ from last week just like knock him. He's just like, I gotta get out there and do this. Gotta get out there and do it. I bet you anything he was in the garage being like, you need to make sure the car is right.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I'm sure everybody was like, you know what? It was kind of weird because like George was on the radio a lot, but like I don't know. He wasn't necessarily, I was a little concerned towards the end that he was going to get Carlos, but that didn't happen. So I was like, all right, perfect. But Lewis did set the fastest lap. So there's that.
I love that. I was dying right at the end. The very last lap, he said it. I'm like, I took that point from Max.
Yes, he did. He took it. And now he's only 20 points down on Checo. So I think he's kind of back maybe about where he was before he was DQ'd in Austin. So yeah, that was like literally one of the first things I thought of when Checo, which we'll talk about Red Bull here in just a second, but when he got out, I was like, oh, he's out. This Lewis has everything to play for. And I think that's exactly what Lewis, he knew it. He's like, he's out. I got to make my moves. And he did. He was like Lewis of old. I love to see it. I absolutely love to see it. It's amazing.
It's all he needs. And it's not that it's not plausible. It's Checo to have 2 of the 3 races go bad and Lewis have 2 of the 3 races go good. And he's going to beat him in the standings. So, I mean, it is mathematically possible for Lewis to become second.
It absolutely is.
All Checo has to do is be as inconsistent as he's been.
Yep. And I feel like Mercedes, in Austin, yes, they ended up getting DQ'd because of millimeters. But that race, this race, they're looking very strong, or at least Lewis is. And that, you get that momentum at the end of the season. This is a very long season and there's 3 races to go. He could totally do it. I think Absolutely. It's amazing. Okay. Red Bull, the start of that race, Max was not messing around. Oh my gosh. That start. And then Checo was right with them. And it was like, Max went right in between the Ferraris. Then he ended up on the outside of the Ferraris.
Like if somebody had to get taken out in that 3-way across, why couldn't it have been Max? Like, just why couldn't it have been? But yeah, I'm glad they showed it over and over. And it's just, it was unfortunate. And Checo says, his quote is, "I paid a high price." He admits he took a risk in the race-ending incident after hoping to win in Mexico. So that's his quote. Yeah. Like he knew that he was taking a risk. He paid a high price. But it's like as soon as it hit and he went up in the air, and I'm like, oh. Yeah. At first I was like, which RB is going out? Like, it's an RB, but which one?
I know. It was crazy. Like, he said he wanted to win this race. And he's like, it was an incident, but he knew, like, that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to win his home Grand Prix, and it just didn't. But do we think that is going to affect his seat? Can we pause for a second?
And we're unpaused. Anyway, no more buttons.
That's like a first. I had to go let this dumb dog in. Oh my goodness. He's a good
dog, though. He
is a good dog, and he's actually very, very smart. But like, he's so smart that he knows, like, if I just keep this up, you're gonna come get me.
Well, it's interesting, the rest of the quote, though. He's like, "I took a risk. I paid a high price for it, but I was also honestly not expecting Charles to break that late, because he was in the middle, so he had a less bit room for maneuvering. I was ahead of him. I thought he was going to bail out of it a bit more, but obviously in those decisions, everything happens really late. And yeah, it just happened everything a little bit too late. And unfortunately, I had a lot of damage to my car."
Yeah.
It's like one of those things. It's like, okay, yeah, you're expecting that. So you're expecting you're just going to shove your way over, and then he was going to be forced to brake so he doesn't get hurt. Well, maybe you should pass a little better, because obviously, as you said earlier, Lando was giving everyone the instructions on how to properly pass. So
he really was. And that's the thing that I think, probably when Checo, like, I get you want to win your home race, you've got to take that risk. But I think when he starts to think about it tonight, or maybe he already has, he had room on the outside to move out a little bit and probably not lose too much space. It just did not go in his direction. I felt
and you're driving an RB.
Yeah.
You're driving the RB19. Like, okay, you couldn't get it there, then take P2, take P3.
Yeah. It's a long race.
And then it was a long race, right? You take P3 because you moved yourself up already, then take P3. You'd already gotten yourself up a couple positions.
Yeah.
And then go, instead of just taking yourself out entirely.
Yeah. And you have really the best strategists on your pit wall. Like, they could have made sure that was a Red Bull 1-2, which is what I thought it was going to be. I really felt sad for him in, like, when he came into the pits, because they were trying to get him back out. So they stopped in the pit lane, and he, kind of was pounding the steering wheel, or the halo, I think, a little bit. And then they pulled the car in, and he was still in the car. And I think they were trying to figure out, can we get him back out on track? And then they pulled it. Like, it just was too much.
It was like after the 5th, 6th, 7th lap, I'm like, he's not going to make that up. I don't care how good it is. He's not as good as Max. There's no way he was going to make that up.
No, I can't imagine to go out on the first turn in your home Grand Prix. Like, awful. So sad. But Max wins. It's his 16th win in a row, or 16th on the season. I don't know. It's another record. What I thought was interesting, and I could be wrong, but after the race and they did their interview, as soon as they get out of their cars, he thanked the crowd. He's like, it's a bummer for Checo, but the fans stayed and they're really great and whatever. And I'm like, you hear that from Lewis every time, every race he says that. I can't think of very many times when Max has said it. So I was like, okay, he's really trying to ingratiate himself.
Yeah, or he got like some suggestions, or
yes, I'm sure there was some suggestion. Like I do love, like, and of course Lewis came up because he was second and he did his right after, and he's like, I've got to thank this crowd. This crowd is amazing. They're passionate. They're beautiful. Like, yeah, Lewis genuinely does appreciate. And I'm not saying that Max doesn't, but he just never talks about it. Okay, so Ferrari, we talked about Carlos wasn't feeling well on Friday. I mean, they really kind of held it. Third and fourth, not too shabby. Maybe we could have done better. I don't know. But it was our 60 for Ferrari, 69th front row lockout for Ferrari. And I know, isn't that crazy? And then before quali, Charles said, it would be a huge surprise if I got pole, but never say never. And then he got pole. But as is usual, Charles didn't win the race because his last 10 poles without a win is the longest streak in F1 since 1987. So if he could just, P2 is probably good, and then let's go from there. But it was nice. It was good to see him on the podium. And then Carlos finished fourth, which was awesome. I mean, they did it. Like, they got through it, and it was great. I was really disappointed at the end when the crowd was booing him. So when he was third and he did his interview, the crowd was booing, and he even said, wow, so much booing. And he says to the crowd, like, I had nowhere to go. I was in the middle. Like, I had nowhere to go. So that was disappointing. They didn't boo Max this go around, but they blamed Charles. So that was a bummer. Not good. But
the only downside is that front damage.
Yes.
Claire, now we're recording everyone right after the race, and so things could change because he was to the stewards.
It did go to the steward?
It went to the stewards. So Ferrari's Charles Leclerc has been summoned to the Formula One stewards for driving in an unsafe condition following the crash with Sergio Perez at turn 1. When Perez attempted to do it, the front left end plate of the front wing became loose and was flapping before detaching on lap 5, leading to a brief virtual safety car.
Yeah.
With him continuing, the stewards feel this is a breach of Article 3.2 of the sporting regulations, the competitor ensuring the car complies with safety criteria. He was required to attend at 16:45 local time after the race, at which time he's currently they were talking about where he was at the race at the time, but that was during the red flag. But
I did think it was weird that he didn't get a black and white flag, because that thing was hanging off, but his engineer said, I think we're okay. And Charles said, it's fine. I was actually surprised he was still in the race, to tell you the truth. I had to do a double take on that, because I just figured both cars went out, and that was that. So for him to hit that on the first turn, and then he still ends up on the podium, what would be crazy is if he does get penalized, then that's another podium for Carlos. That would be 4, where he finds out after the race that he ends up on the podium. Which I hope that they let that go. Like, but I could see Haas, like Gunter, saying because they were getting nailed for stuff left and right last year with that kind of stuff.
I wonder what kind of penalty would they give him?
I don't know. That's the question.
Or would it be grid? I mean, it's not. There's no post grid penalties. Would it be so many seconds?
It would probably be seconds. But what was weird? Where I think they're going to.
If it's 5 seconds, it would put him behind Carlos. If it's 10, Lando would still be behind him. It was because Lando was 10.1 seconds. 10.14.
I feel like the only thing that worries me with this is that it did end up causing a virtual safety car because it did end up falling off. I think if it hadn't fallen off, I would not be concerned at all. But I think the fact that it ended up falling off and causing a virtual safety car is where I think they could have issues. So, but did they get a black and white flag? I don't know. I feel like Ferrari could argue and say, you didn't give us a black and white flag and we thought it was secure. So I don't know. Anyways, next week, the last of our triple header, it's another sprint race. We'll only have 3 races left to go. We are in Brazil for Interlagos. Typical sprint weekend. I think this is our last one, but Friday we've got morning practice, afternoon is qualifying for Sunday's race, Saturday sprint shootout in the morning, the sprint in the afternoon, and then Sunday's the race. So it could be interesting. They'll just have the FP1 to get the car set up and ready to go. We'll see what happens. It's 71 laps, 2 DRS zones, 4.309 kilometers. It's basically like lengthwise, just like I think it's 0.005 different than Mexico. So obviously not the altitude and everything else that you have to deal with in Mexico City, but same number of laps, same number of DRS zones. And one is 4.305 kilometers and this one's 4.309. So Interlagos features a lot of bank corners. The drivers kind of start on like a half oval, if you will. Then they go through like the Senna S down to turn 4. It's actually a really cool looking, and it will be posted on our site, Instagram and stuff tomorrow. Very cool, like that whole S thing, going down to turn 4. It's very awesome. Then they go through a snaking infield section with some challenging changes, and then they sling up a hill through the banked final turn. So, there's a couple areas where it's banked, because back when this was built, that was kind of like a big thing. The banking was like a big thing. So there's a couple of those areas, which is really fun. I like the banking. I think that makes it a little different. It's sort of like a home race for Lewis. He was last year given a Brazilian honorary citizen. And they adore him there. They absolutely adore him. Senna family, I think, really also very much likes him. So it will be all about Lewis next week. And what could be interesting is if he does really, really well, which he has been lately, then the crowd is going to go nuts. Like they're going to go crazy. So again, I think it's another
stay calm. And here's a lesson, because there's a quick update on the fight that broke out.
Oh,
the person who attacked the Ferrari fan was kicked out and banned for life.
Good. He really got that guy. I mean, he had him down.
I saw a little bit of the video, and got banned for life. So let that be a lesson to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fighting doesn't pay. Look at what happened. There, he was going after 2 of them, but one he really got good. And then there was a poor lady that was like flat on the benches because she, somehow, they ran into her. So good. I'm glad he's banned for life. We're not going to put up with this nonsense anymore. It's bad enough that, I don't know, you have to deal with so many of these keyboard warriors, like to be at a race and, just be trying to enjoy yourself. We don't know what was being said and done, but still, that violence is never the way.
What happens to, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Get over it,
Exactly.
We're counting down, just a few more left. And then we've got we only did like 2 team spotlights this year. We'll have to spend December doing team spotlights and all kinds of education and all of that. That'll be kind of fun.
So much. And then next week we'll have the Brazilian race, and then we have a week off, And then it is Vegas. And there's a lot of stuff that came out this week about the opening ceremonies for the Vegas. I think there's 20. Oh gosh, now I feel it's 21 or 12. I don't know. Different types of musicians are going to be performing. All the drivers are going to be at this thing. It's going to be a show. So we will definitely break that down in between Brazil and then the Vegas race. So there we have it. That's it.
Let's hope that nothing changes between now and the time we go live on Tuesday with our recording.
That's okay. If it does change, then we'll make a little note on our social medias.
That's it. All right. Well, thank you all, and have a good one. And we'll see you guys in a week.
Bye.
Bye. And a review. To stay up to date with She Loves the Grid and get all the behind the scenes content, you can follow us on Instagram at She Loves the Grid and on Facebook at facebook.com/She Loves the Grid. Thank you for joining us for the ride this week.